This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Underwater again. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. More flooding in a place that definitely doesn't need it. Central Texas, and it's forced a pause in the search for victims from that cataclysmic 4th of July flood. Rescue workers say being sidelined like this, well, that's a hard pill to swallow.
There's nothing that we can do, and it's kind of a tough feeling, you know, because we're here because of the rain, and now we're shut down because of the rain, and it's hard to sit still, you know. There's still a lot of people that are missing.
Nearly 170 are still missing. The death toll stands at almost 130. Fire tore through a nursing home last night in Fall River, Massachusetts. 9 are dead, 30 others injured. Fire Chief Jeffrey Bacon.
Crews were met with heavy fire coming through the main entrance. Multiple people hanging out the windows looking to be rescued.
That facility houses about 70 residents. A devastating wildfire at the north rim of the Grand Canyon. It's grown 20 times its original size in just 5 days. It's consumed 40,000 acres and destroyed a century-old historic lodge at the world-famous tourist destination. Church shooting in Lexington, Kentucky has left 2 women dead and 2 men wounded. Those killed were a mother and daughter. The mother was the wife of the pastor. It happened at the Richmond Road Baptist Church in Lexington.
Church was a small church, and the majority of the individuals are related.
Sometimes things happen. We just don't have a reason why.
The suspect was shot and killed by police earlier in the day. He shot a Kentucky state trooper during a traffic stop. That cop is expected to survive. The U.S. is sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine to help out in its war with Russia. President Trump says he's very disappointed in Russian ruler Vladimir Putin.
He talks nice and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it.
Mr. Trump meets today at the White House with NATO's Secretary General about the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Border czar Tom Homan is blasting a judge's ruling to halt immigration raids in Los Angeles.
I don't think any federal judge can dictate immigration policy. That's a matter for Congress and for the president, and I know the Department of Justice is going to litigate this. We want to take it to the appeals court.
Last week, hundreds of migrant workers were rounded up in an ICE raid at 2 separate marijuana farms in Southern California. Simon Hankinson is an immigration expert at the Heritage Foundation.
When there are people here in this country illegally and they're at risk of harming American citizens, they need to be removed. And when they're let loose to run around and to work and to live freely, then all that risk is on our communities instead of the communities back home where they're from.
14 migrant children were found working on those pot farms during last week's raid. Democratic lawmakers took a weekend tour of Florida's infamous Alligator Alcatraz detention facility. Some called the conditions there inhumane. Representative Maxwell Frost.
We saw people, of course, yelling for help. We even heard in the background someone yell, "I'm an American citizen." They started chanting "Libertad," freedom, liberty.
Florida Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage.
The Trump administration says conditions at Alligator Alcatraz are not inhumane, and the facility even has air conditioning. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the president does not want to dismantle FEMA. He wants to rework it.
I think he wants it to be remade so that it's an agency that is new in how it deploys and supports states.
The Trump administration plans to have states have more of a say in how FEMA operates.
The president recognizes that FEMA should not exist the way that it always has been. It needs to be redeployed in a new way.
The president has been critical of FEMA in the past, but has praised the agency's recent efforts amid the devastating flooding in central Texas. The White House is defending the president's new tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and the EU. Kevin Hassett is director of the National Economic Council.
Well, these tariffs are real if the president doesn't get a deal that he thinks is good enough. But, conversations are ongoing, and we'll see where the dust settles.
Those tariffs kick in August 1st. And the 2025 Major League Baseball All-Star Game is tomorrow night at Truist Park in Atlanta. The fan favorite Home Run Derby happens tonight. All 8 sluggers in the Derby this year are first-time All-Stars. How about that? Still to come on the Noon Report for Monday. Cleaning up from the storm, unexploded fireworks, and when 911 lets you down.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. We're once again tracking a few thunderstorms in parts of the area this afternoon. I'll have forecast details coming up. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
All right, Kevin, we will see you then. The cleanup continues from powerful storms that rocked the region yesterday. Roads were closed, homes flooded in places like Whitney Point and Newark Valley in Tioga and Broome counties. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says extreme weather conditions are becoming more commonplace.
This was forecasted decades ago that if mankind didn't stop its assault on Mother Nature, there'd be revenge. Well, Mother Nature is getting her revenge now. And that's what we're dealing with. It grows more destructive every single year.
The governor says the state will spend $25 million to upgrade its emergency response system. There's a flood warning in effect until 2 o'clock this afternoon for parts of Lycoming and Sullivan counties in Pennsylvania. Muncie Creek in Pennsylvania near Route 220 is spilling her banks today. Our hot summer weather has triggered some algal blooms in local waterways. The Finger Lakes and Great Lakes are among the areas affected. Gannon College professor Sherry Mason tells Jet TV that algal blooms are not harmful to humans, but pets, well, that's another story.
You want to be aware, especially if you're walking your dog near the water's edge. You don't really want them drinking it or bathing in it because it can be very harmful to them.
The algal blooms are triggered by a combination of agricultural runoff and warm summertime water temperatures. An investigation is underway into what caused a statewide outage in the 911 emergency system in Pennsylvania. It went down on Friday, forcing everyone in need to call their local police department instead. 911 service was not fully restored until Saturday. The cause of the outage remains a mystery. Officials do not think it was cyber terrorism. The Buffalo, New York-based Christian relief group 8 Days of Hope is on the ground in central Texas, providing emergency relief to the Hill Country flood victims. 8 Days of Hope volunteer Monica Davidson.
What I see with my eyes is not that shocking to me, but it feels very different, knowing that there's so many lives have been lost, and then also knowing that so many are still missing.
If you ever walked in a place and felt like you're welcome, it's here. These people, to be grieving and hurting and to get to hear their stories and stuff, they're amazing.
That is 8 Days of Hope volunteer Jeffrey Bird being interviewed by WIVB. More than 160 people remain missing in Texas from the 4th of July flood. 8 Days of Hope plans to be on the ground there until this coming weekend. Residents of Fredonia, New York, are still under a boil water order through at least Wednesday. Drinking water should be boiled for at least 1 minute if you live in the village of Fredonia. The water is safe, however, for laundry and bathing. 2 drive-through water distribution sites are open at the Fredonia Fire Department. A fireworks warning at a Pennsylvania tourist attraction has park officials there urging caution. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Officials at Gettysburg National Military Park are warning the public about a potentially unexploded commercial-grade firework near Gettysburg Area Recreation Recreation Park. The warning follows this month's A Gettysburg 4th celebration, where fireworks were launched from the same area. The device may be in wooded areas or fields between the park and West Confederate Avenue. Authorities say if you spot it, do not touch it or move it. Instead, mark the location, take photos if safe, and call 911 so trained crews can take care of proper handling and disposal. Brian Query, Family Life News.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. A Wayne County, New York mother and daughter have made it their mission to restore grave sites at an historic cemetery in Macedon. For Deanne and Erica Newcomb, this is a labor of love that they began together 4 years ago.
This project originally started in 2021. I came here with my mother, Deanne, and she and I saw the condition of the headstones. While the lawns were very well kept, it was being mowed regularly. The headstones had been stacked in a pile right over here, and the pile went up to my hip, so it was a very large pile of just fallen headstones.
The restoration effort is happening at the Macedon Cemetery, where the First Baptist Church of Macedon recently celebrated its 225th anniversary. Many of these headstones belong to veterans, which to the Newcombs makes this a very special project.
I mean, this is our country. This is who we are. We are only as great of a country because of the sacrifices that these men and women made hundreds of years ago. We have to honor them, or else we'd be not appreciating what we have now, the freedom that we have, the liberty, all of that.
One of the headstones the Newcombs are restoring belongs to Revolutionary War soldier Levi Wood. This guy helped push the British back to Boston right after the battles of Lexington and Concord. It was in those battles that the first shots of the Revolutionary War were fired. Thousands enjoyed the 42nd annual Taste of Buffalo over the weekend. For foodies, it doesn't get better than this. Family Life's Dee Haley.
Nearly 50 vendors gathered in Agra Square Saturday and Sunday for one of the largest food festivals in the country. The winners of the 42nd Taste of Buffalo were announced on Saturday, featuring 14 awards for a variety of local wineries and eateries. Resurgence Brewing Company Barley Brussels earned bragging rights for the best overall item. The best new item went to Krishiki Bakery's Cream Puff with powdered sugar, and Sweet Melody's Red, White, and Blue Sundae was named the best dessert. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
All right, Dee, thank you very much. Let's pause for sports. That's next on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the rubber game of the series between the Yankees and Cubs went to Chicago. Shota Imanaga picked up the win, going 7 innings and striking out 6. Dansby Swanson and Michael Busch both went deep for the Cubs, while Giancarlo Stanton provided all the offense for New York with a solo shot. The Mets made things exciting in Kansas City. The Amazons scored twice in the top of the 9th to tie the game at 2, but the Royals got a walk-off RBI single from Nick Lofton, and they won it 3-2. The Phillies snapped a 2-game skid with a 2-1 victory over the Padres. Christopher Sanchez went 7+ innings, only gave up the 1 run. JT Realmuto drove in the go-ahead run for Philadelphia. And the Pirates were 2-1 winners as well. They edged the Twins, scoring the winning run in the top half of the 9th inning on a ground out. Tommy Pham hit a home run for the Buccos for their other run. Around Major League Baseball, winners were Boston, Seattle, Cleveland, the Royals, Athletics, Reds, Brewers, Cardinals, Dodgers, Marlins, and D-backs. And across the pond at Wimbledon, Jannik Sinner is your men's champion. The top-seeded Sinner beat second-seeded and 2-time defending champ Carlos Alcaraz in 4 sets to win his first Wimbledon title. It's his 4th Grand Slam crown. And in NASCAR, Shane Van Gisbergen is the man. He took the checkered flag in Sonoma. It's his 3rd victory in the last 5 NASCAR races. Meanwhile, Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemchuk, Tyler Reddick, and Ty Gibbs all advance to the Final Four of the in-season challenge. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, thank you. Still to come on the Noon Report, church shooting in Kentucky, wildfires in the Grand Canyon, and chaplains in the park in Pennsylvania.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Men have forgotten God. That's the reason that was given by author and dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn after 50 years of studying and writing about the history of the Russian Revolution, which led to the death of over 60 million people. In fact, he continued, and I quote, "What is more, the events of the Russian Revolution can only be understood now, at the end of the century, against the backdrop of what has since occurred in the rest of the world. What emerges here is a process of universal significance. And if I were called upon to identify briefly the principal trait of the entire 20th century, here too, I would be unable to find anything more precise and pithy than to repeat once again, men have forgotten God." Well, if his analysis were extended to today, to include the cultural chaos that has emerged in the years after the Cold War into the first decades of the 21st century, it might be this: and forgetting God, they abandoned truth. The abandonment of truth took the form of increasingly bizarre demands, especially within academia, government, and media, to accommodate what were obvious lies and myths and falsehoods. According to Romans 1, the primary consequence of rejecting the Creator is, in fact, to believe lies about reality and about morality and about the human person. In our day, these lies are often sold to us with demands of inclusion and equity and with the promise of being free from traditional moral constraints, even free from the restrictions imposed by reality itself. Now, those promises have proven to be as false as the lies themselves. Instead of freedom, we've now built ourselves a world with epidemic levels of unhappiness and isolation, not to mention the increased use of power and manipulation to enforce these ideas that are obviously not true. Christians are to be truth tellers and to tell the truth in the way that God has told us to tell the truth. At the very least, that means not only knowing what's true, it means having confidence in what's true. Otherwise, we'll respond to the deceptions and the deceivers of our time and place with either silence or anger. Now, silence is never an appropriate response. Anger can occasionally be called for, but never in place of loving those who are the victims of the lies. At the same time, we should never confuse love with niceness. It's never loving to be co-opted into deception. What it means to live out this essential calling that all Christians have, to be truth tellers in this critical cultural moment, is the focus of the upcoming Great Lakes Symposium, Thursday, July 24th. Please join me for Truth, Love, and Humor, Faith Without Fear, along with Jim Daly, president of Focus on the Family, who will be talking about truth and love without compromise, and Seth Dillon, president and CEO of the one and only Babylon Bee. Not only is the Babylon Bee everyone's favorite quote-unquote fake news site, they have mastered the art of using humor to tell the truth. In fact, they were kicked off Twitter for doing that. Truth, Love, and Humor, Faith Without Fear is absolutely free, but you have to register. If you live near Bay Harbor, Michigan, please join us in person at the Great Lakes Center for the Performing Arts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, July 24th. Otherwise, you can sign up to join the live stream. Learn more and register at greatlakessymposium.org. That's greatlakessymposium.org. The promises of freedom by abandoning the truth have all failed us. But Jesus' promise to give us freedom is sure, and it's certain, and it comes through, as he said it, knowing the truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you very much. Outside next, work week weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast this afternoon. A warm one. We'll have clouds and sunshine, a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms with high temperatures ranging in the 80s. Partly cloudy tonight, some patchy fog forms, low temps 60s and low 70s. For tomorrow, ample sunshine, very warm to hot, highs in the 80s and low 90s. Steamy Wednesdays, sunshine, a couple showers and thunderstorms around with high temperatures in the 80s to near 90.
All right, it's rinse, recycle, repeat with our weather these days. Thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report. I'm Bob Price. Lots to get to Monday, the 14th of July. More flooding in central Texas has complicated search and recovery efforts from that catastrophic flooding over the 4th of July weekend. Those floods killed almost 130 people. There are 170 others who are still missing. Wildfires forced evacuations over the weekend in the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Up to 80 structures have been lost to the flames, including the historic Grand Canyon Lodge. Tom Salpizio is president of the Grand Canyon Historical Society.
Cabins, campgrounds, there's a Park Service ranger station, and there's a visitor center, and all of those were lost.
Gusty winds and triple-digit temperatures are making containment efforts difficult there at the Grand Canyon. 9 are dead, 30 others injured after fire raced through a nursing home last night in Fall River, Massachusetts. People were hanging out the windows screaming for help when firefighters arrived. Sunday services at a Baptist church in Lexington, Kentucky turned deadly yesterday. A mother and daughter were shot to death. The mother was the wife of the pastor. 2 men were also injured in that shooting. At the Richmond Road Baptist Church, the gunman was killed by police.
Preliminary information indicates that the suspect may have had a connection to the individuals at the church.
A Kentucky state trooper was also shot by that gunman during a traffic stop prior to the church shooting. President Trump expressing remorse that Russian ruler Vladimir Putin is not more interested in peace as the war with Ukraine grinds on.
I am very disappointed with President Putin. I thought he was somebody that meant what he said, and he'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night. We don't like that.
The U.S. is sending Patriot missiles to Kyiv to aid in its defense against the invading Russians. President Trump meeting today at the White House with NATO's Secretary General to discuss more the war, Europe's largest war since World War II. You're listening to the Noon Report, a Monday edition on Family Life. This is Missions Pulse on Family Life. Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight ministries that are making a difference where you live, across the country, and around the world. This week, we're spotlighting Chaplains in the Park in Pennsylvania. Our guest is Chaplain Tim Bremer from Harrisburg. Here's some of our conversation. Tim, you have about 20 chaplains providing church services in 37 parks throughout Pennsylvania. If you would just explain to our audience how Chaplains in the Park works exactly.
Well, Bob, Chaplains in the Park started in 1960. It was almost like a revival, and we've been doing it ever since.
60 years, that's awesome that you've been around that long. Chaplains in the Park, Tim Bremer on this week's edition of Missions Pulse. From what I understand, this is a ministry that goes from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and chaplains will be ministering to campers all across Pennsylvania and state and federal parks and even private campgrounds. Is that pretty much the gist of it?
That's correct. We have a couple different state parks that are actually partnered up with some local campgrounds that are nearby that asked for us to be in their campground to give them the services that we do.
Is this an actual church service that you conduct right in the camps themselves?
Well, most of the parks we have our worship services in have an amphitheater. Sunday worships are done at the amphitheater. We have some parks that do their services on Saturday.
Can you tell our audience what the inspiration for this was?
Well, one of the instructors had this vision of bringing the Word of God to people in Pennsylvania that normally may not go to church when they go camping. So we provide that service to them.
Yeah, and that goes to the point the church is not a building, it's people. And I can't think of a better place to have church than in God's creation, the great outdoors. We had mentioned earlier you guys have been around since the 1960s. What do you think's been the key to your longevity, Tim?
I think the success of this is people thirst for the gospel. They want hope, and like you said, we're not a church. We're outdoors, and we've seen our numbers increase since the pandemic. What better way to worship God than to be right here in His creation, camping and family? It seems to be that kind of mix. Camping, being with your family, being in the creation that God gave us, and just worshiping and having good fellowship in the park with different programs that we have.
You mentioned you have 20 chaplains right now. Is there a real need for more of these sorts of services throughout the parks of Pennsylvania?
Well, right now we have empty parks. We have vacant parks. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 empty parks right now that need chaplains.
Wow. We'll give the website at the end where folks can go online and find out more about your ministry, Tim. But I got to ask you, when you find a chaplain, are they assigned to a specific park for the whole summer, or do they move around from week to week?
I'd like them to move around, but when people ask to be a chaplain, we try and get them to a park that's close, that's not far away. If they go to a park which they're familiar with, it's a lot more productive for them. They're familiar with the people, the park, how things work.
Yeah. You have mentioned you've been with chaplains in the park since 2021. I'd be curious as to what drew your interest to this ministry.
Well, I was 58 when I graduated college. When I was done with that, I had a vision of what I wanted to do. And the key is what I wanted, not what God wanted. And God came to me and told me through an angel, you know, I had a tragedy of my son passing, and the angel told me, look, your son is here with us. He's fine. God wants you to stop worrying and move on. And you can't worry about your son and work for God at the same time. And so I was inspired through that. A pastor that I worked with in the past at a camp put my name in the hat and said, hey, this gentleman here, Tim, would be a perfect match for this chaplain's job.
What a unique mission field you have there. I think it's just wonderful on so many fronts, and I can't think of a more beautiful picture of the church than being in God's creation, worshiping our Savior, the creator of the universe, in one of the many, many just absolutely gorgeous parks throughout Pennsylvania, and there are so many of them. Tim, you've been very gracious with your time today. I know there are going to be more than a few people who are hearing this that are going to want to know more information about chaplains in the park. Maybe you're a retired pastor or a layperson even. I don't know what the qualifications are to be a chaplain in your ministry, but maybe there's somebody out there right now. Maybe God is moving them right now to join up with your ministry. Is there a website folks can go to find out more, Tim?
Yeah, they can go to PA Churches, that's pachurches.org, and click on Ministries, and you'll see Chaplain Ministries, and that's where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any stories of lives changed while we close that you would like to share just off the top of your head? I love those anecdotal kinds of stories where a ministry has made a real difference in somebody's life.
Well, there's plenty of stories, but one that did come to mind is my wife and us were giving a worship service, and it was a couple weeks after Memorial Day. I think it was the first year I did it. I came up with a sermon called AD. It was basically talking about anxiety and depression. And me being a vet myself, after the service, I had a gentleman come up to me that had been in the Gulf War and had told my wife and I how much that this service meant to him. It's something he needed to hear, and that's exactly what he said.
Amen.
He goes, I needed to hear what you had to say today.
Amen.
And we get that all the time.
I bet.
When we do our kids programs, just for another example, we have moms, dads, whatever, come up and thank us for what we do. And they do it not just for me, but for all our chaplains.
Yeah. I suppose not being in a traditional church, and I'm just spitballing here, but I suppose maybe people tend to be a little more real because they're not dressed up for church. They're outside in a park, and maybe God moves in different ways there. I don't know. What do you think?
Honestly, God does not not care what you wear to church. God cares that you were there and you were praising Him, you're singing to Him, and you're trying to walk with Christ as He is right beside you.
And that was Tim Bremer with Chaplains in the Park in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, for this week's edition of Missions Pulse. Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight ministries that are making a difference where you live, across the country, and around the world. And you can download all our Missions Pulse feature reports online this summer at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Well, very good afternoon to all. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast on the weather map. Got a front we're dealing with stretching from New York State to Indiana, and that front will continue to serve to produce some unsettled weather today as we head through the afternoon and evening hours. Then higher pressure in the upper Great Lakes will build in for a mainly rain-free sunny day tomorrow before the next front arrives with some showers and storms later in the week. So for this afternoon, a warm one. We'll have clouds and sunshine, a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms with high temperatures ranging in the 80s. Partly cloudy tonight, some patchy fog forms, low temps 60s and low 70s. For tomorrow, ample sunshine, very warm to hot, highs in the 80s and low 90s. Steamy Wednesday, some sunshine, couple showers and thunderstorms around with high temperatures in the 80s to near 90.
Okie doke, Kevin. Thank you very much. Staying busy at the Weather Center. Finally, today we celebrate a classic comfort food. It is National Mac and Cheese Day. The earliest known recipe for macaroni and cheese is believed to have come from a 13th century Italian cookbook. The dish gained modern-day popularity in this country when Kraft Foods boxed it up and began selling it in the 1930s. And that's our world, the world we live in, Monday, the 14th of July. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.